Welcome back to another tier list video. In today's video, we're going to go over the Game of Thrones seasons followed by the House of the Dragon seasons. In light of House of the Dragon just completing their second season, I thought let's keep in theme and let's do the Game of Thrones universe. And let's get started because I'm just so excited about this one. As you can see, we have seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Game of Thrones, and I personally added seasons 1 and 2 of House of the Dragon. This tier list did not have that, and I didn't feel like going through and getting all these thumbnails, so I kind of bummed off of this one. And of course, we have the tiers S, A, B, C, D. There is no E, I guess, because I don't know why. But it kind of makes sense because if I don't like something that much, we're just going to put it in F. And there's at least one season in here that I can put in F. I don't know if I'll do another video after this going over the characters. If I do, it's not going to be right away. But for this, I'm only going to be doing the seasons of this show, and then I might come back later, loop around, and do the characters. Because after the Star Wars character tier list, I'm a little tapped out on going through 150 characters. Plus, I need to watch this show in its entirety again to brush up on the names, or else I'm going to be sitting here in between each clip of the video looking up all the names, and I don't feel like doing that. So let's start off with season 1. I'm sticking season 1 at A. I thought it was a solid opener to a show. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, Ned Stark was a fantastic character, and it still gets me every single time that they kill him off. And it's just the same as killing him off in Lord of the Rings as Boromir. So upsetting. And I feel like if he was in the show longer, the show would have been so much better. But he wasn't in the books that long. He got his head chopped off in book 1 or whenever the books. I didn't read the books. But in season 1, he's gone. But we get everything kind of developing. We get this start of the Battle of Game of Thrones. Everyone's story is starting to take form. Daenerys is becoming part of the Dothraki horde, and she's becoming their queen. And she ends up getting her 3 dragons at the end, so that's picking up. Jon Snow gets sent to the wall. He's becoming a Man of the Night's Watch, and we're getting lots of stuff building up to set the pace for the rest of this show. And I think it did a very well job. Robert Baratheon is the king. He's asking Ned to be his right hand. But then Robert Baratheon dies by the hands of a boar, which was some sneaky business going on behind there. And then Joffrey, the most sinister, twisted child of this entire show, he's setting the pace for the rest of these seasons, saying, yo, hey, this is what we're going to be seeing over the next few seasons. And we'll get to his death soon because it was well-deserved. And that's the first season. I think the season belongs in A. I don't think it was as good as putting it in S, but, I mean, for the opening season of a show, it was fantastic. And I think it belongs in A. Season 2, I'm going to place at B. I think it was a really good season. I think this is where it started really picking up, and we started figuring out what everyone's going to be doing, and everyone's story kind of split. I mean, in the first season, everyone's pretty much together for the most part, aside from Jon kind of going his own way, and Daenerys having her own story, but now we have it all split. We got Jon, we got Sansa, we got Arya, and we have everyone kind of doing their own thing. And even Theon Greyjoy kind of went, and he's joining his father again. And then we have Bran and Rickon kind of like staying and keeping shop up at the Winterfell Castle. And then we also have Robb going to war because he's trying to avenge his father. So we have all of this kind of transpiring. And we're also getting a lot of interesting stuff going on with Arya's story too. Arya meets up with Jaqen H'ghar. I think I said his name right. I probably didn't. I don't know. And that whole scene is cool. And she's kind of like getting the favor of Tywin Lannister as well, but he has no idea who she is, which is hilarious. Tyrion Lannister is named Hand of the King, and he's making moves. And then there's the Battle of the Blackwater at the end of the second season. And that's a great episode. And he gets his face slashed in half. Tywin takes his place, and then that's when we get into the third season. But I think season 2 was really good. I feel like just for that first season of the show, opening up this whole show, the first season is A, second season is B for me, which brings us to the third season. Season 3 for me, I would also put at A. I think we get way more movement going on with Jon Snow. Now, in the second season, he also kind of met up with the wildlings, but now he's like joining them, and he's trying to unravel their ranks within their ranks. But he's also falling in love with Ingrid. So we have that whole story, and then they climb the wall. So that right there is just really exciting to watch. That was a whole series of events that was so much fun. And then we get into Daenerys. Now, Daenerys in the second season, she's also making some moves. But in the third season, she's starting to build her army. She gets the Unsullied. And she's starting to show everyone, like, hey, I'm here to stay. I'm here to fight. You may not see me from across the water, but I'm coming to take that throne for myself. And for this entire, like, I remember watching it like, oh my gosh, Mother of Dragons coming in. This is getting great. Like, this is getting interesting. And you're rooting for her more than most at that point. In the second season, Brienne of Tarth is taking Jaime Lannister back to King's Landing, or to Tywin. But in the third season, that gets really dicey as well, where they get captured by some people, and he gets his hand cut off. That episode shocked me when that happened. I was like, holy crap. And they showed it, of course, because it's Game of Thrones. They show way too much in the show. And that was crazy. Up until that point, he was just like all mouth, conceited. He was the best swordsman, and that kind of brought him down a couple notches. And then that's when his character started to get a lot better. We started to really like him. And then that's kind of like takes him to the fourth season as well. But then the third season ends with still one of the craziest endings of any season of any show, the Red Wedding. Robb Stark arrives at the Twins for this wedding because his uncle is going to do what he was supposed to do, which was marry one of the Frey girls. Well, that ends real bad, as everyone knows who's watched the show, and everybody, I mean everyone, gets annihilated. Robb Stark, his wife, his mother, his entire army, and that brutal scene where you see his wolf's head stacked on top of his body. Brutal. It makes me just shake sometimes thinking about it, and that was one of the craziest things in television at that point. Biggest portrayal you did not see coming, and that was so amazing about this show, is that you never saw what was going to happen. You never know what was going to happen next. I mean, straight from season 1, Ned Stark getting his head lobbed off, big shocker. And if you hadn't read the books, I mean, this was a great show to watch, to be surprised every episode. Then we come to season 4. I'm going to put that one at S. I don't think it's bad enough to put it A. I think it is great enough to put in S tier, because so much happens in this episode, and a lot happens at the wall that makes me want to put it at S. But there's so much movement within this season that is just really, really pushing the envelope of like how great this show was. Jaime comes back. He's good. We got a nice little haircut. We got a golden hand. He's got to learn how to swing a sword with his left hand. Finally, Joffrey gets what he's well deserved, and he's poisoned. Now, we're supposed to believe that maybe it could be Tyrion. Obviously, I know it wasn't right off the bat because of the great acting that Peter Dinklage did in making you believe. He was shocked. Like, what is this? Who just did this? We found out that it was Elena Tyrell who poisoned his drink. We don't find that out until later in the seasons. And we're also supposed to think that maybe it could also be Sansa or whoever it was. Lord Baelish's like goofball that he was sending to go pick up Sansa, but we didn't know at that point. There was this huge trial that was going on trying to convict Tyrion, and it looked like he was going to die. Oberyn Martell, good old Pedro Pascal, comes in and he goes, "I will fight for you." And he does. And that is one of the coolest scenes out of the entire show, honestly, where he's fighting the Mountain. Oh my gosh. I mean, you think he's gonna win, and he wins until he doesn't, and he gets wiped out. And I skipped that part because it's way too graphic for me. And then the Mountain becomes some kind of like zombie cyborg Frankenstein mess, but that was insane. Then we get episode 9 of season 4, which is so freaking good. I mean, I love everything going on with the White Walkers and with the Wildlings, because this is the pressing matter within Game of Thrones. Everything else is just extra awesomeness, but this is just fighting the Wildlings. They're trying to get to the other side of the wall because they know what's coming. Winter is definitely coming. White Walkers are approaching, and they need to get the heck out of there. It's not even just that, they're also just fighting the Night's Watch because they're enemies, and because Jon Snow betrayed them. So that whole battle is so... It was one of the best episodes, if not the best episode at that point in time so far. And probably still top 3 episodes of all time in this show. And Jon Snow is showing, hey, I'm the leader here. You know, you guys can follow who you want to follow. I'm the guy you want to follow. I'm going to be your leader. And he shows it in a big way. Sadly, Ingrid gets shot by that kid, which was so freaking annoying. Some of the wildlings survived, but the one guy that really matters is Tormund Giantsbane. Oh, I love that character, and I love like that he's becomes best friends with Jon Snow. And yeah, that episode is insane. And then the season finale, Tyrion says, all right, you're going to convict me. I'm getting out. And Jaime breaks him out. He wouldn't have had the opportunity without Jaime. And he was supposed to just leave. And he didn't. He just went and he got a crossbow. First, he strangles his former lover because she was messing around. She lied and then was sleeping around with his father, which is super weird. And then he gets a crossbow and puts 2 bolts in his father. And that's it for Tywin, leaving the rest of the Lannisters exposed to the rest of the world. And that was awesome. Like, again, like the show, you never knew what was going to happen, and was not expecting that to happen at the end of season 4. And one thing that I'm forgetting to mention through seasons 3 and 4 is Arya's journey with the Hound. I love that. I love that the Hound is literally in the beginning doing it for money. He's going to take her back to her family, to her aunt in the Eyrie. Then he's starting to grow an attachment for her, and he's starting to care for her. It's awesome to see. And then eventually you see within the seasons that he doesn't want to give her up. Like, he wants to make sure that she's safe. And Brianna Tarth's like, I'm tasked by her mother to come and save her. And he's like, who's going to protect her? You? And she goes, what, are you protecting her? And he goes, aye, that's what I'm doing. It's like, oh, yes. It's like, her father's dead. Her family's dead. I'm protecting her. Oh, man. I haven't watched this show in maybe like 6 months because I usually come back around to it. I think I'm going to do another binge because this show, oh, man, it's just so freaking good. Yes, season 4, definitely S tier. Season 5, also S tier. Oh, man. I mean, most of the show is at the top of this tier list because, I mean, season 5, again, like, we're starting to make waves. We're starting to see more happening. We get to see the Night King, which is awesome. I mean, we see him briefly, but we get to see the magnitude of his power at the end of this season. But we're also getting Tyrion. He's escaped, and he's trying to find the Mother of Dragons. He wants to show her, like, hey, he says, I'm the gift. And he has a little journey with Jorah Mormont. And Mormont's just capturing him because he thinks that that's going to be the way to get back to the Mother of Dragons. She's setting up camp at a city, and she has freed all these slaves, but she's also learning how to be a queen at this point. You know, in the past couple seasons, she gathered her army, she freed all these slaves, but now she's being a queen, and she's becoming a ruler, and she had to do this because if she was going to ever try to take the 7 kingdoms, she needed to learn how to do it in at least one city, which she was kind of failing at a little bit, but then she was learning from her mistakes. Mormont, he was cast aside because he betrayed her early in the show, but then he was loyal most of this time. He takes Tyrion to her, and he ends up getting cast aside again. She keeps Tyrion, and he becomes the hand of the queen. And yeah, more stuff happens in the north. We have this huge battle at Hardhome, where they're going to rescue all of these wildlings. And Jon Snow's like, we need to save them because all of these people are just fuel for the Night King to make his army if they end up dying. So we have to go save them to bring them back and let them go through the wall. That did not go well with the Night Watch, and you know, they're not happy about that because the wildlings are their enemy. Huge battle, and the Night King shows him, this is what I can do. And there might have been like 5,000-6,000 dead bodies on that beach. He just raises them all up, and now they're part of his zombie Night King army. And that also was one of the top 5 episodes. You're like, holy crap. Didn't see that coming. Also, Arya, after leaving the Hound to die, goes and finds the Many-Face god and finds Jaqen H'ghar, or he goes, I am no one. And she's going to learn to become an assassin, basically. that's basically what she becomes, and I was there for it. I'm here for it still. And that was an awesome storyline. I mean, her whole character development from this girl who wants to fight as a knight to becoming an assassin, it's freaking amazing. We also get the High Sparrow in this season. Can't stand any of that stuff. Actually, when I go through, I skip a lot of that section of the show because, I mean, when you watch it so many times, you skip certain things, but it's just so annoying. And the Lannisters are just left exposed, not having Tywin there. But that's season 5. Definitely S tier. Through this whole tier list, I know I'm not like touching on everything. People have watched this show. I'm not going to do a whole synopsis. I'm just explaining why I enjoyed the show and why I'm putting them in these tiers. Season 6, again, S tier. I mean, most of this show is kind of like S tier, but end of season 5, one of the biggest stabs in the ribs that they gave the fans was Jon Snow dying. That was utterly insane. One of the biggest shocks in the show because you're thinking, no way, he's actually dead. Because at that point, leading up to end of season 5, anybody who died didn't come back. Unless they were nobodies that the Night King revived. But yeah, so the Night Watch betrayed him because they didn't like his decision of letting the wildlings through. And yeah, they all just murked him. I stabbed like, what, 8, 9 times? But then, Stannis Baratheon, another person in this entire show that I really haven't mentioned, but people know who he is. His whole story is just kind of like there. I'm not really interested in his story because I never thought he was actually a contender for the throne. But Robert Baratheon's brother, he, through all of his trials to the show, ends up getting to the north because the witch Melisandre is telling him that's where your journey lies now, which is fighting against the dead army. She's putting in her lot with Jon Snow at this point because she revives him, brings him back to life. So that was freaking great to see because you're thinking, he's dead? I'm done. I quit. But she brings him back, and at that point, he executes all of the people that killed him, even that kid. So he gets his justice, and then he's done with the Night Watch. He's going to go and find his family, and he's going to go fight with the North and reclaim the North. And he becomes King of the North, as we see later in later seasons. And then he meets up with Sansa. Sansa has escaped from Ramsay Bolton, which was a huge thing happening in that season. And then they're going to reclaim the North. And then there's the battle between Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton. And that is a fantastic episode. Jon is claimed King of the North by the Northmen. We have Bran come back. He was not in season 5. He's in season 6 now. And he's becoming the Three-Eyed Raven, which is also a crazy thing. That he's able to see everything from the past and present and to kind of like navigate the future. We see Hodor's End, which is wild how that happens. And then we have the Hound. He didn't die. He's kind of like doing his own thing with the guy who's making his own village. And people kill that entire village that he's living with. And he seeks justice too. Love that. Grabs an axe from the log and just goes on a rampage. Meets up with the Brotherhood and they're kind of like buddies at that point. And then the last thing from this season that's notable is that Cersei Lannister is captured by the whole like High Sparrow deal and those creepy acolytes, and she's made to do the Walk of Atonement, which was super weird. And then in revenge, she blows up the Citadel. I believe it's the Citadel, and makes that bad boy go boom, and she annihilates half of, or not half, but a good chunk of King's Landing. But yeah, that's season 6, S tier. Then we come to season 7. I'm going to put that at A. There are moments that are S tier for me, but it's not full S tier seasons. Smaller season, the Mother of Dragons, Daenerys, ends up coming to Dragonstone. She has gathered her Dothraki army. She has gathered her ships. She has everyone. She's ready to go to war. And also Jon Snow meets with her because Tyrion sent him a letter, I believe, and they're trying to meet. The North doesn't like that, but he goes anyway. They meet. He needs the dragon glass, the obsidian, because that's the only glass that everyone can use, aside from his sword, that can kill the White Walkers. So they are trying to form some kind of bond. She wants him to bend the knee, and that was the one thing in that season that was really annoying. All she kept saying was, bend the knee, bend the knee, bend the knee. It's like, okay, listen, he's a king in the North. You don't know him, which they end up knowing each other and they end up falling in love, which was cool because you find out that that's his aunt. But they're all Targaryens are weird, freaky people anyway, so they're down for that, all incest and all. I guess Cersei and Jaime too. We're not gonna get into that. But then he eventually ends up bending the knee and saying, "I want to serve you. Like I believe in what your cause is, and I want to serve you as my queen." So, all right, cool. A little salty about that because I wanted Jon Snow. I was on Jon Snow team at that point. But then when they go all the way to past the north into the Wildling territory and they go to capture a White Walker to prove to King's Landing that this is the real threat. We can fight each other after this. Holy crap. That was a great episode. I'm definitely watching this show after this tier list. Yeah, that was a fantastic episode and one of the highlights of the show. All these guys going to the north, fighting the White Walkers, and the dragons end up coming to rescue them. And then one of the dragons just gets lanced in the chest and holy crap. Yeah, that was brutal. And then the Night King has a dragon to fly around on. And then also the big kicker, we find out that Jon is actually a Targaryen and he's heir to the Iron Throne. Wild. And then that's when we get to season 8. Now I know that I have an F tier down here. I don't think I'm gonna have to use it because I'm just gonna put season 8 at D. Season 8 was pretty good in that first half. Everyone from season 7, everyone's agreeing to go to the north and fight the White Walkers because they're coming. This is the threat. We have to understand this is what's going on. So everybody's story that has been scattered throughout this entire show is all coming together in this one moment. Cersei is the only one that's like, no, I'm not doing that. You guys go fight each other and I will kill what's left. But there's not going to be anything left because the White Walkers are coming. Jaime leaves her, says, deuces, fine. I'm going to go fight because we gave our word. And he's becoming more of an honorable man. And at that point, he's more honorable than he's ever been. So that's that whole first half of that season. It's just this big fight. A lot of people die. Mormont dies. In the end, this is what happened in the 8th season in the beginning that bothered me. Jon has been fighting this fight this entire show. And he didn't get to battle the Night King. Oh my gosh, that's all I wanted to see, was him go at it with the Night King. And he doesn't. I mean, it was cool what Arya did, but the main mission for the Night King was to kill Bran, because he's the three-eyed raven, and that's what the mission was for the Night King, aside from just, like, killing all of the living. But then Arya comes out of nowhere, jumps, gets caught by the throat, drops the dragon glass, and stabs him in the gut, and saves the day. That was fine. I thought it was an awesome clip, but I still wanted to see the battle first with Jon and the Night King before we got to that point. And they missed out on it. So that's it. The world is saved from the White Walkers, and the Night King is defeated, and all of his minions and his army. Then we get back to the real war of the Seven Kingdoms, and Daenerys is going to battle. And there's tons of fights, leading up to the main rough ending of a season. She has her right handmaiden killed, beheaded, and Grey Worm's not about that. I mean, no one would be. And she wants vengeance now. And Jon Snow and Tyrion are trying to talk her down. Like, hey, listen, we still need to do this the right way for the Seven Kingdoms to want to serve you. They go to King's Landing, and they're trying to take it. But Daenerys is slowly realizing, because at that point she knows that Jon's heir to the kingdom. And she wants him to hide that information. He told Sansa and Arya, and Tyrion knows. And of course Samwell Tarly. And she wants to know how that information because she wants to be queen. And he's like, I don't need to tell anyone this. But he told somebody because he couldn't help himself, which was fine because you know what? I wanted him to be king. They go to King's Landing, and she was supposed to wait for the bell of surrender. And then she wasn't going to annihilate anybody. And this is where the show goes south for me. She burned an entire city to the ground. Just leveled it. And that was the whole thing that Tyrion was saying. Why do you want to be Queen of the Ashes? And that was like this whole character development flipped for her, where she's like, she wanted to break the wheel of her ancestors, but she just kept rolling on that wheel. And this is what happens when you don't show patience and you don't let the writer complete the last book. And also when the writer gets lazy and doesn't complete the last book because he's just in his world of, oh, I'm getting all this money from the movies. Dude, finish the last book. So now we got TV writers, right? This entire show was based off of books, right? I think the last 2 seasons were based off of nothing. It's just written for the show. And the 7th season kind of like was fine. You know, it was A. But then this last season was... And if you don't know what that means poop. So then, okay, she destroys the whole city, and you can see she's a little bit of a psycho now. So Jon's left with the task of, what the heck do I do? And he does the hard work. Tyrion gives up his hand, you know, tosses it off, and he goes, I'm done. You've literally betrayed my trust, and you have just murdered so many people because of your anger. And you've let your inner Targaryen loose. So he's like, I'm done. He's imprisoned, and then Jon says, all right, I guess I gotta do the big thing, and he goes and he kills her. Now, that would have worked, and they could have done it where, you know, he could have just killed her, and then Grey Worm captured him, and that's it. Like, they just take him captive, and then that's it of his story. I mean, Jon Snow, along with Daenerys, both joining, like, they had great storylines and character development, and he goes from the top to the tippy top of being King of the North, and a literal legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, and they just send him back to the wall. And then Bran becomes elected to be the king. All right, nothing against Bran. He's the three-eyed raven. That's an awesome superpower. But why is he the king? I don't know. That was a very bad choice on their part, and I really think that they just messed it and screwed the pooch with Jon Snow's story. And I've read things from Kit Harington. He's like, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing that anymore unless something good comes up. But like, even the actors realized that was very poor writing for an ending of a show. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, season 8 is D. Sometimes I watch it, sometimes I just stop after season 7. I try to come to grips with it and accept that that's the ending of the show, but it's just like me not watching the sequels for the Star Wars series. I can't do it. It's bad. But that is the end of the 8 seasons of Game of Thrones, and all that's left is now the first 2 seasons of House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon Season 1, released in 2022. I am putting that at A. I don't think it's S tier. It was better than Game of Thrones Seasons 1, 2, I believe that's what I put there, and I think 7. It's better than everything in that A tier. I'm not going to sit here and create another tier for it. I don't think it's S, but I thought it was freaking good and a solid first season of any show. We get to see 2 generations of a story where everyone's younger and then everyone grows up and they start having their descendants, and then we're realizing there's a rift within the Targaryen family, which becomes I believe it's called the Dance of Dragons. We get to see that inner conflict within the family of like who's supposed to be taking the role of king or queen. Rhaenyra was promised to be heir, and then the son, Aegon, he was promised. But what he was talking about when he was dying was saying that he is the king that is promised. And he was talking about the prophecy of Jon Snow, who is named Aegon. Now there's that whole conflict. Love the characters. This is the same thing for Game of Thrones as well, and the same thing for House of the Dragon. They picked perfect actors for all these roles, and they all performed perfectly. The person who plays Daemon, Matt Smith, I love Matt Smith as Doctor Who already, but he was so good as Daemon. Then we got the guy who plays Aemond, gets his eye patch on there. Freaking awesome. Aegon, he's great, he's sleazy, and the story is going really well. The season ends where you know there's going to be a war. The one son died of Rhaenyra. He gets just ripped apart by Vhagar. So now we know what's going to happen in season 2. There's going to be a war, which brings us to season 2. Season 2, I'm putting down here, I'll put it C. It wasn't bad, it was just boring. Nothing freaking happened. And it's because the story's over. Like, there should have been a war in this season, and then they could have had a 3rd season to wrap things up, a couple extra battles. No. And this is the thing, like, each season of Game of Thrones until the last 2 seasons were 10 episodes. Then they started doing this 8-episode seasons, and it's like, if you're gonna do this, put a lot in there. And they didn't. The only good thing to come out of season 2 of House of the Dragon was the battle, the dragon battle, between the queen that never was, Rhaenys, and Vhagar. And then Aegon came in and got his butt whooped and crisped. But that was the only exciting thing. Daemon goes to claim Harrenhal, and he's there for 7 episodes. Like his mind is getting like taken over by this witch, and his dreams are being corrupted, and it's like boring. I mean, he's one of my favorite characters in the show, and he didn't do anything. Things are moving along with Rhaenyra. She's starting to figure out, like, okay, we can't just keep within the pure Targaryen blood. We need people who can ride these dragons that we have just like sitting there waiting to fight. So she goes and just puts out a casting call, basically, for all of these Targaryen, not purebloods, half-breeds, to get them in, and they become dragon riders. Really cool part of the season. I like that. That was great. But then there's no battle to back up this whole thing. So we see the end. I know what's going to happen is that we're going to build up all of this stuff, and this season was just a boring, slow burn snooze fest of a build up to then cliffhanger you and say, hey, look, this is what's going to happen in the third season. Yeah, I don't care. I want to see it now, because this is what happens with these shows now. From 2022 to 2024 was how long we had to wait for this second season. I know there was a writer's strike and all, but I mean, if we're gonna have to wait this long for the third season, I'm gonna go nuts. Now, I just looked something up, and I think the season 4 is coming out next year. I don't know how that's gonna happen. I think someone did a typo. If season 3 comes out next year, then I'm all in. That's great. I'll shut up about it, but I'll still complain that this season was boring. There really is nothing to talk about by season 2. Real slow, a lot of building, there wasn't even a character building, honestly. I mean, you got to see Aemond. He goes a little crazy because of his failures. Aemond is taking place as king while Aegon heals from the burns. And then Aegon he just escapes. He just goes to Braavos. But that was a wrap in this tier list. We got Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Such good content in here. I freaking love these shows. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do more. I know they're thinking about doing more shows. I would love to see a show about Aegon the Conqueror. I know they're doing the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm not sure how that will go. And I know they were talking about doing a Jon Snow show. They shouldn't. Just stop. There's nothing that he can do in the future after being King of the North and now going back to the slums of the Night's Watch. No. Just stop while you're ahead. Hope you enjoyed this video. I kind of have fun making them, basically because I love hearing myself talk. So if you like this video, click like and subscribe if you want some more. And I'll catch you on the next one. I think maybe I'll do like Harry Potter next. Maybe I'll do Lord of the Rings. Or maybe I'll just do a whole tier list of my top like 10 or 25 shows or movies. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.